Cadi, can I invite you just to talk about priority one before we go into breakout?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll post some questions for the breakout as well. Sarah, I believe, is going to be wonderfully helpful and share my slides with me. As similar to Giselle, I'm also having a Windows 11 update experience, which is very exciting. But yeah, I'll let Sarah share slides for me. Brilliant, thank you. Morning everyone, Bore da pawb. So I'm Cadi Cliff. Some of you will have seen me before, some of you won't have, but I am one of the programme managers for Digital Community Wales, Digital Confidence, Health and Wellbeing, DCW for short, because it's a very long name. As a couple of people have mentioned, we are the Welsh Government's National Digital Inclusion Programme. It's delivered by Compass in partnership with Good Things Foundation and Swansea University. And the alliance, which we're all here today for, was created as part of our programme. Ultimately, at DCW, we support organisations across all sectors in Wales to identify the barriers they face to digital inclusion in their organisations and the communities they work with. And we develop solutions and interventions with them that are sustainable. And we do this through offering free training, advice and support interventions. If you want to know anything more about DCW, we'll pop a link to the website in the chat later, just for those of you that may not be as familiar if you're new to the Alliance. But we do recognise that the term digital inclusion or exclusion can sometimes create further barriers to people understanding the work that we do. So simply put, we work across all sectors, as I've said, all organisations, and we're really focusing on improving people's digital skills, confidence and access opportunities so they can engage digitally in ways that are meaningful to them. As it says in the slide, I'm going to be focusing on what does embedding digital inclusion mean in your organisation. So if I can have the next slide, please, Sarah. So why is embedding digital inclusion in your organisation important? What does it look like? And what are you doing yourselves? In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to pose a lot of questions around this area, which will hopefully provoke lots of thoughts for the breakout rooms. Next slide, please. Thanks, Sarah. So, as you've heard, embedding digital inclusion, it's really important. It was important before the Alliances from Inclusion to Resilience agenda was published in 2021. It's important now in 2023 with the launch of our progress report, and it will continue to be important on into the future. Huge progress has been made, as you heard from members of the steering group, but we know that we need to keep shifting this dial forwards. We know, as many of you all heard before, that currently we're sitting at 7% of the population in Wales not being online, and 22% of those who are online don't have all the essential digital skills to engage safely and meaningfully online. We know that more and more of our lives and public services are online, and therefore it's hugely important that we ensure that everyone in our community has the skills and resources to use the internet confidently and safely if they choose. We know also that it's important for there to be non-digital offline options available for people as well. We've also seen an acceleration in organisations going through digital transformation journeys since the gear shift that happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that digital transformation is not possible without digital inclusion at the heart, at the foundation of all and any transformation journeys to ensure that people are factored in. Simply put, embedding digital inclusion in your organisation is important to ensure that nobody, whether it's staff, volunteers, or the people that you support, are left behind. Next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So what does embedding digital inclusion in an organisation actually look like? Ultimately, to caveat all of this, it is a unique journey for every organisation, but there are some key principles and these would be ensuring collective ownership. So digital inclusion is not something which sits within one department or one team. It's definitely something which shouldn't just sit with an IT team. Collective ownership across all areas of an organisation ensures collective understanding of the importance of digital skills, confidence and access, and a collective buy-in to seeing how things improve for staff and those that the organisation supports as well. It's also ensuring no single point of dependency. If you, you're on this call today and you happen to be heavily involved in digital inclusion activity in your organization, ask yourself, what would happen if I moved to another job in another organization tomorrow or in a week's time? Would digital inclusion continue to be championed, embedded, and delivered upon in your organization without you? Is it something that's built into your operational delivery, but also your strategy and culture? The digital strategy for Wales says that digital change isn't just about technology, it's about a change of culture. I have a colleague at Compass who particularly likes to say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it is really true. To bring your organization on a digital transformation or digital inclusion journey, whatever you want to call it, you need to ensure buy-in. You need to make it real to people about how increasing skills, confidence, and access will help them and the people that they work with or support. It's about embedding a digital ethos throughout the organization where everyone has a part to play in creating a culture of digital inclusion, regardless of role. And you need to make it practical and sustainable as well. Setting a vision is brilliant, but you need to have an action plan on how you're actually going to be doing it, what resources and support you're going to need along the way, something that people can actually understand. And you're going to need to factor in how you're going to make it sustainable, as opposed to like a one-off activity, a kind of flash in the pan style approach. Think about what are the processes you have and what needs to be embedded into them. From the moment somebody joins an organization, what does their digital inclusion journey look like? What should it look like? And the same goes for those that engage with your organization as well, be that patients, tenants, customers, members of the public, etc. And keep it evolving, review what you're doing, learn from others, such as fellow Alliance members who are on this call, review, reflect, adapt, go again, and continue with that, and shout about your successes as well. Next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. I just want to take a beat here to stress what I said at the start of the last slide, which is that digital inclusion is a journey and it's going to look different for every organization in every sector all the time. So you can learn from similar organizations and groups to yourselves, and we'll have a chat in the breakout groups and you'll kind of hear what other people are doing, but you can also learn from organizations wildly different to yourself as well. At DCW, we are doing a lot of work linking organizations together to share ideas and ways of working when we can see the benefit for both parties. We're all better at this when we're doing things in partnership, and it's something that we really believe in at Compass. We are a cooperative and we really believe in that cooperative ethos of doing things together. But basically, no matter where you are in your journey, don't be put off. For starters, as I've said, as a program, we're here. Our door is always open to support you, in embedding this sustainably, both in your organizations and communities. Yeah, just if you looked at the previous slide and were like, oh my goodness, like we're not doing anything of that, that's okay. Like, just want to take a beat here and stress that it is a journey and everyone is at a different kind of point in that journey. So if I can hop to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. But some of the ways that you can actually embed digital inclusion are, embedding it into strategy or plans. So it doesn't have to be a specific digital inclusion strategy. In many ways, digital inclusion needs to be embedded into all strategies. So your workforce, your customer engagement, your learning and development, all of those elements as well. But it's what comes underneath that strategy that's important. It's the objectives, the action plan, the targets, the vision of a longer term approach. And if you're a smaller community group attending today, your strategy could be a one-page plan, something that outlines your vision, how you're going to do it, something practical that people can understand, that's in accessible language and kind of isn't filled with a bunch of sort of tech jargon, basically. But it's really crucial that digital inclusion is embedded both in strategy, but also operational delivery to build that kind of continual loop between the two. So it's not something that just sits in pockets of delivery work, but also isn't something which sits on a paper somewhere, but doesn't appear in practice. So it's really important that the operational side and the kind of strategic side and processes are talking to each other. And, as I've mentioned, it's also crucial that there is a whole organizational approach as well. So we're talking top to bottom, but also side to side. Digital inclusion is everyone's business. It benefits everyone. And then also around kind of finding collective assets in your organization is something that's crucial to ensuring there isn't that single point of dependency that I've touched on. So for example, developing digital champions, so people in your workforce at all levels who are upskilled to be a kind of critical peer support around digital, but also a champion of digital inclusion as well, and developing them in such a way that you're continually building that pool of people up is key way of ensuring kind of buy-in and sustainability. So it's not a one-off exercise. You get some digital champions on board, they're trained, and then that never happens again. You want to have that continual loop, that continual input of colleagues. And it's key that staff and those that you support are upskilled. So I said at the start, if there are 22% of the population that are online but don't have all of those essential digital skills, then that's some of the workforce, and that's going to be some of your workforce as well. And as well as being kind of staff and colleagues and, citizens of Wales, etc., we are members of our society, members of our communities. We are people living and engaging with public services ourselves. When we take our staff hat off, we're people too. So it's really crucial that we all have the digital skills and confidence personally and professionally. And upskilling staff really allows them to go on and share their skills with those that they support, supporting them online, increasing kind of everyone's collective confidence in the round. And you need that skills building to be built into your processes as well. So I know I keep saying this, but if it's a one-off exercise that you run, it's not something that's embedding. So, what does your induction look like? Do you ask people what their digital skills are when they join the organization, what their level of digital confidence is? What does your learning and development offer look like around digital skills? Do you have support solutions and training for staff around these areas? And what about access? Does your organization have the right access for its people, the right data and devices for staff to engage digitally? If you're talking about digital transformation, but you have some non-IT users in your organization who don't have, for example, if you're using Office 365, if you have some individuals that don't have those accounts and some that don't do. So you have some people that can access your systems and digital communication streams, but then you have people that don't. You're going to leave people behind and you're not being inclusive as an organization. And also, what about non-digital options for your customers if they don't yet have the digital skills, confidence and access? They may do at some point, but if they don't right now, what kind of non-digital options do you have available for them? On a really practical level, have you signed up as a digital inclusion hub? For those of you that don't know, they were previously called online centres run by Good Things Foundation. They're now called digital inclusion hubs, but have you signed up as one of those to access the National Data Bank, which can provide data to individuals in your community, as well as kind of broader learning and resources? Ultimately what I'm kind of getting at is that there is a difference between delivering a piece of digital inclusion activity, which is brilliant, and embedding digital inclusion within your organization. The latter is something that will ensure everyone benefits and the brilliant activity work that you do becomes mainstream and isn't a one-off thing. And like I said, it's going to look different for everyone, and that's okay. Again, going to keep beating this drum. DCW is here to kind of help you on your journey with this. But yeah, we're really looking at what are ways to mainstream the buy-in around digital inclusion and then that kind of action within an organization as well. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought. Have some questions for the breakout rooms, but before we hop over to those, I'm just going to ask my fellow program manager, Dewi, if there's anything that he would like to add to my ramblings before we post some questions to you all to get you thinking.
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive, Cadi. Yeah, no, nothing really to add. I guess, well, if there is anything, I guess it's just like any other kind of change process, really. And Cadi kind of covered quite a few of the steps there. I think what we've seen, we've picked out some of the kind of success factors from areas where it's worked well. I don't think it's necessarily happened completely in any organization really as of yet, and it's an ongoing process, and obviously there's a lot of learning to be gathered from organizations where this implementation has happened. I guess in some kind of public sector organizations, the size of the organisation makes it really difficult. Just, you know, it is a massive challenge implementing that type of change at scale with consistency across, you know, massively varying kind of functions within an organisation. But yeah, I think fairly kind of clearly set out there by Cadi. Thanks.
Terry. And yeah, absolutely not underestimating the size of the challenge with this as well, but that's why spaces like this are really important, to be able to draw on partnerships, you know, whether that is with us as a program or just Alliance members as well. Somebody at some point will most likely have come across the challenge or barrier that you're facing. So it's always just kind of, you know, ask and don't be afraid to work in partnerships. So if we can go to the last slide, Sarah, and then I'll pop this in the chat for everyone, but really want you to have a think about, like, what does embedding digital inclusion in your organisation or sector, if maybe you're a bit more of a floating person, look like, and what are you currently doing, or what could you be doing? So I'll let Sarah come in with the specifics about the timings for that, for those breakout rooms, but I'll pop them in the chat. And I know that Sarah will share DCW's contact details as ever. So if you do want to have a conversation, I can see, you know, Russell's just said hello. He's one of our advisors for Neath, Talbot and Swansea. We have advisors all around Wales. So if you do want to have a conversation with us, our mailbox is very much open. Thank you, Sarah.